Aim is the most simple mechanic in CS, but the hardest to master. Point and click on their head is the end goal, but if you think that's the main way to improve your aim, you're completely wrong. Recently, Donk and Kyousuke have shown that there's another layer to aiming. The best aimers do a lot more than just aim well. But how can you do this yourself? Let me show you how the best aimers keep getting better, the basics that make a great shot easy, and why so many pros are paying thousands of dollars for aim coaches. But before we go any further, the sponsor of today's video. Skin Club is a top adult, that means 18 plus, case opening site with a huge variety of cases that can be unboxed to collect and upgrade skins. Skin Club's provably fair system guarantees a fair chance to all players that you can easily track, whether you're unboxing alone in your room or against users or bots on LAN, or anywhere in between. Skin Club lets you open individual cases solo, or you can try to unbox your favorite skin or a skin from your favorite creator. Hey, Vitality is on here, and so is Kerrigan. If you've had enough of that, come back another time and activate your daily case, which Skin Club has for free with up to 13 different levels based on your experience. If you'd rather try something different, you can find your perfect match in battle on Battle Tinder, or you can weigh the risks to upgrade your undesired garbage skins for something actually useful. Just put in the skin, look for an upgrade, and let it spin. Skin Club offers themed events monthly, bringing new cases, giveaways, and prizes you can get by playing on the platform. You can deposit with crypto, card, or the skin sitting in limbo that you never touch. Make sure to check out the link in the description for a 7% deposit bonus. Zontix is one of the best players in the world, despite literally not going for headshots, and Calix has won multiple events while pre-aiming above the enemy's head. Game sense, of course, is important, but if you think about it, all your game sense does is make your shots easier to hit. It doesn't actually solve the fact that you do eventually need to shoot your opponent unless you're playing G2. Think of the best aimers in the world. Nico, Donk, Xantares, Monacy, Rops. It's not a coincidence that almost all of them are also known for their insane movement. Your aim is just one part of your mechanics, and this is probably the most important concept when it comes to improving your aim. The easier you make it for yourself when you first see your opponent, the less your aim really matters, and your aim will never be 100% consistent, so the best players do a lot of this. If you look at this clip from Rops, it is great aim, but you can see that every kill he gets isn't exactly a 90-degree flick like you might get in deathmatch, but he has his crosshair very close to where his opponent is going to be, and then adjusts it once he actually sees them. His mechanics bring him 90% of the way, and then his aim brings him the last 10. Or at least that goes for when you're peeking into your opponents, but when they're peeking into you, it's a slightly different story. So don't get peeked into. Or at least that's what Reddit will tell you, but that's a little easier said than done, so your point-click aim obviously matters, which brings us to the 5 keys to great aim, which is movement, flicking, tracking, recoil control, and visualization. Okay, I know what you're thinking. What is visualization? Well, I wouldn't have considered it that important until recently, but Elige explained it really well.
You need a lot more than just like aim, and that doesn't mean just like you have to be smart. For you to actually utilize your aim, you have to visualize where the guy is. If you don't visualize where the guy you're about to peek is actually going to be, and you do a good strafe, your crosshair placement's in the right spot, then you're just not going to be ready, and it's going to be way too hard to like actually use your mechanics well enough.
It sounds like it's just crosshair placement, but I think it's actually a lot more than that. This clip I showed a minute ago is mostly crosshair placement and game sense. Kyousuke thinks his opponent is running away, but Kaspersky hits him with the counter peek. And this play from Kyousuke should make it easy to understand. He's clearing mid and hears a grenade throw from jungle, instantly understands where it's going, then in a split second decides where the other opponent would be playing and pre-aims perfectly. He follows that up with a clean peek towards short and a perfect clear towards CT spawn. But the play towards window required not only crosshair placement, but first understanding the position his opponent was likely to be playing and how they would be peeking mid based off of a nade throw from jungle. Bad visualization can be something you probably see often, like someone holding an off angle as if they're going to be hard cleared, when the point of an off angle is your opponents probably won't clear it perfectly, unless you're playing Kyousuke, who hard clears off angles. Obviously, the less ready you are, the worse your aim will look, which is why, in my opinion, for beginners, deathmatching is usually better than bots, because you actually get a feel for the map and how your opponents might peek you. But visualization also leads into how you peek your opponents. If you look at this peek, it gets the job done, but you definitely had time to shoot back. However, if you look at this one, it almost looks like a pre-fire, but it wasn't. It was just that the player peeking actually visualized the angle and pre-stopped. That is, he began stopping before recognizing a player was on his screen. And basically every time you see Reddit complain about peeker's advantage, that's most likely what it was. Except for this clip. That's a bit different. But still, pre-stopping gives you a huge potential advantage. And good aim is all about maximizing every small advantage you have. Here's a style of movement you might have noticed watching Pro CS recently. People are constantly fidgeting around while holding angles, and it looks really weird. On paper, this makes your shot a lot harder to hit, but in CS2 with Peeker's advantage, the idea of catching an opponent before they're ready is actually worth it in a lot of situations. This is a lot easier to deal with than this, and especially with an MP9 or UMP now, I guess, you can even swing out immediately and make yourself insanely hard to hit. This is the exact type of small advantage I'm talking about that makes your aim a whole lot easier, even though it's not technically your aim. But still, it doesn't prevent you from hard whiffing. If you've ever seen someone on your team that looks like they're just never going to miss, that's probably because their tracking aim was really good. And if you've ever had an SMG swing on you, you probably know tracking is pretty hard. Okay, pause for a second. That shouldn't actually be tracking. People that deal with SMG swinging on them well just hit one of their first few bullets, and once they're tagged, it's a completely free kill. Tracking is more like trying to kill your opponent once you've missed your first shot on pistol round, or trying to 1D someone that isn't looking at you. It's probably the least important part of aim, but you might regret not practicing it if you're in a major final. But honestly, it is very overlooked and honestly can help you gain a lot of consistency if you get it down. This is a pretty good map to practice it on as a warm-up that you actually might find pretty useful, but obviously it's not quite as useful as practicing your flicks. If I was making a tier list on the most important skills to get kills in CS, flicking would rank above tracking, but below micro adjustments and almost everything else, including recoil, which is probably controversial, but think about this. In your last game of CS, if you're not an opper, how often did you actually land the first bullet? Even when not flicking, the answer is probably pretty low, but when flicking, unless you're at a reasonably high elo, the answer is probably close to 0. Or the answer is every time, because otherwise I don't get the kill. And if you look at this clip from Donk, you'll notice if he didn't spray them down at this range, he would have had to reset his recoil, strafe, and then aim and shoot again. It would have given them the chance to shoot back, and he would have had to have better aim than if he could just finish them off with a spray at long range. I wouldn't have included this honestly, but I played with a friend at 10K Premier the other day, and basically every player in the game could have doubled their kills if they could just control their spray. The first 9 or 10 bullets are mostly vertical, and it's honestly criminal that people play for hundreds of hours before getting that reasonably consistent, because if you get that down, you'll instantly be a better player, and that's one of, but not the only reason I personally tell people not to use aim trainers. The best players and aim trainers almost certainly have better aim than pro CS players, but that doesn't make them better at CS, because a lot of aim is game specific. If you're level 4 and your aim sucks, an aim trainer might make you better at clicking on a target faster, but it probably won't make you better at killing someone in CS faster than deathmatching. Not to say aim trainers aren't worth using, but if you want to get better at CS, you should probably mostly be playing CS. No matter how good your aim is, if you peek out and stand completely still because you're trying so hard to aim really well, you're probably just gonna die to someone running around with an SMG. In fact, that's probably why low-level players think the P90 is completely broken. I've noticed over the years that lower-level players have started to get pretty decent aim and okay peaks, but it still hasn't changed at all that after they miss their first couple of shots, they just end up standing still and being a completely free kill. If you look at Kyousuke, who's supposed to be the next Donk, he actually exemplifies this idea perfectly. Traditionally, the way to aim is to stop, scope, flick, fire. I mean, move, counter-strafe, then shoot. But with Kyousuke and a lot of top players now, they're actually realizing you can shoot while moving a little bit and get a slight advantage, especially against opponents without armor. Because part of the edge you have on those types of players is that they need to hit you in the head while you're perfectly comfortable finishing them off in the body. But speaking of Kyousuke, Simple probably has the most aura of any player in CS history, and part of that is down to how amazing his flicks were. He could get out of position, make a mistake, and then still come away with the kill, or two. Nobody falls in love with watching Zontix robotically shoot people in the body. Realistically, get better flicks is probably the main thing you wanted out of an aim video. Improving your flicks mostly comes down to hours and hours of practice. Aim trainers are actually useful for this, just make sure you're using them sparingly for 20 or 30 minutes at a time, not for hours every day. But you should also use them for the correct ideas. One thing you may not have realized is that there's another layer to a flick. flick. You have the initial flick and then the micro adjustment afterwards. Most people when practicing flicks want to drag their crosshair halfway across the screen and instantly take the shot. But the most consistent aimers are actually experts at readjusting when their flick is slightly off target, which is most often going to be the case even for the best of the best. In this video from DDK, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Even Donk's first bullet or two aren't always directly on target, but he's instantly readjusting when his crosshair is slightly off, and the faster you do this, the better your flicks are going to look to those watching. In fact, most experts I've heard will say micro adjustments are more important than flicks in CS. Now, there are great ways to practice micro adjustments in the game itself, including refrag, wide prac maps, and aimbots, and simply keeping this idea in mind should help you practice it really well as long as it's a focus. But when it comes to aim, I'm always going to argue that if you think your aim sucks, there's at least a 50% chance that it's not your aim that's the problem, but your ability to make your shots easy to hit and the enemy's shots harder, and that should always be your main focus.